So I'm very excited today. We get to have Dr. Jacob Weiss join us, and let's start right away. And can you tell us, Jacob, what is how your background? You have definitely a unique background that we just heard. How did your background help you start HandEyeBody Academy?
Sure. Well, yeah, I'm excited to be part of the podcast, and I can share a little bit where it came from. It's a mix of all of my different experiences. So first of all, I learned to juggle when I was 10 years old, and that's been a part of my life since then, starting as a hobby, and then as I went to college, and then even grad school, started up shows and juggling and everything on campus. And then my research work, my PhD work, is in biomedical informatics. And my focus is really on sharing information online, collaborative, building the collaborations among nonprofits and local communities. So, for example, you might have a social worker who learns about one new resource available, and then this other social worker doesn't know it exists yet, and then someone changes positions. How do you really share that information online and create that access to resources, especially supportive care resources? So the combination of the juggling, and actually before the juggling, I was doing basketball, ball handling drills a lot growing up. So all of that movement and fun creativity side mixed with my research of sharing health and wellness resources online. And so both of them come together in approaching the exercises around hand-eye coordination, making them fun, but also connecting them to very functional movements and goals, and not just the goals themselves, but how can a lot of what I think about is how can these exercises connect different audiences, different professionals. For example, someone who works with Parkinson's and someone who works at a Montessori school and someone who coaches hockey all may be doing the same exercises. And so they can really be a way to share that knowledge and information and learning across disciplines. That's part of a bigger vision as well, but it really comes from that combination of the fun and the juggling and the movement with my thinking about collaboration and sharing health resources.
So can you explain a little bit then, like what is the HandEyeBody Academy? Like what, you brought the juggling and the ball handling aspect to it. A lot of high hand-eye coordination exercises that you need for that. But what is it? The platform, do people use it online? How do you access it? Can you explain that?
I have online resources, training videos. A lot of it's really emphasizing train the trainer. So part of my approach is sharing different styles of variations on exercises. People might know throwing and catching a tennis ball can be a great hand-eye coordination exercise, or crossing the midline, or dual tasking, but you don't always learn, okay, how do you get creative with it to make it fun, to make it engaging? How do you approach different ways of interacting between you and your students and clients, or groups together, and making everyone laugh and have fun with the exercise together? And so you might know the research and the practice of why it's important, but you don't know all the ways to modify it and make it a little harder, make it a little easier, add something to make it novel and keep it changing. And so that's really a lot of my approaches, helping especially professionals who already are doing this work find ways, build that confidence in being able to quickly change it up. A lot of times people will use the library of exercises. If you're planning a class and you're even last minute, what should I do? Pull up a few exercises, and you can always make it something different and fun. So it's providing that extra resource for it. And a lot of my approach is not saying, do this one exercise and it'll give you this specific result. It's really you as the professional teacher, coach, therapist, know your client, know your student, what their needs are and what level they're at. And so from the HandEyeBody Academy resources, you can pull from these tools, whether it's printed, tools or videos of exercise ideas. And then you can say, okay, I'll take that idea and I'll modify it for this specific individual. So it's really providing that creativity, that spark that then you can mesh with your own expertise. So for example, if you're working with someone with Parkinson's, that will be a different knowledge base that you're starting with than someone who is a basketball ball handling coach. So you may take one piece of the idea for one discipline, and then someone else may apply it in a different way. And so it's really, you can think of it almost like, I don't know if you know, like stems in music, where it's kind of fundamental building blocks. These are fundamental building blocks that you can pull from and combine in different ways to put together new exercises that are just the right fit and challenge for whoever you're working with.
I absolutely love that because one thing that when I found you originally on Instagram and just sharing of just your creativity of different exercises. So my background, as some people know, I was a vestibular therapist at a clinic, and just thinking, and I work with people with Parkinson's, also, but I would use those exercises very differently. So like a few of them that I loved, and I'll share everything online again that we discussed today. But I have a daughter that plays basketball, so I was even showing her prior to this the one that you have the ball that it just keeps moving like in circles, like you kind of. And it looks so easy, but when you start going faster, it's hard. But having that turning would be for somebody who has a vestibular to be able to look at that if there was letters on the ball while it's turning, while they're moving it. Doing an exercise like that would be different for the vestibular system of activating the visual system. Or I love the other one that you do with the ball. I'm going to keep it with the basketball for a moment. When you did like the different angles. So that would be two different things that how you're, for me as a therapist, one, I'm having smooth pursuits watching it versus trying to catch different balls. My eyes are jumping for saccades as it turns. So really thinking of what that client, but a lot more creativity versus me just saying, follow your finger,
Yeah, and that's the idea. It's right. Instead of it just follow the finger, then you make it fun, you make it a little different, and you can keep changing it, right? One day you might do one style of exercise, and then another day you do a different one, but each of them you still had that specific goal, whether it was tracking saccades, moving back and forth, whatever it is, or balance, right? You can have the functional goals, and part of what my approach is really starting from what are the different types of functional goals that people may be working with their students and clients, and say, okay, starting from that concept, what different ways can we make it different, creative, fun, and so it's instead of it just being completely just random movement, it all is informed by that existing best practices and approach. And so it's like with vestibular and with balance, you may be able to take, I think it's a lot of it is exercises can combine, right? It might combine balance, smooth pursuit. It might have something where you're crossing the midline. So that's all, and three other things, right? So because it combines all those different elements, someone who's trying to really focus on smooth pursuit can do that, but also they get these side benefits and exercises. And someone else who's trying to come up with some exercises to use with clients crossing midline can use the same exercise, right? So because they combine different elements, I think that is part of what helps it work for different audiences.
Yeah. And I love, just the audience that's listening for, one thing that I stress for specializing in balance is a lot of the neurological population, or as we age, we over rely on our visual system for balance. So, one of my mentors, we said that we're glued with our eyes, or we're balancing with our eyes. So if we stare at that point, we're good as once our eyes move, but to have somebody move their eyes, then they start being fearful for falling, or they don't want to. But if you give them something fun to do, they don't even realize they are moving their eyes. So just tons of ways to get their eyes moving while they're trying to do a balance task, I think is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, and even with your eyes closed, right? A lot of the exercises, if you're passing a ball in different patterns from hand to hand, you can do that with your eyes closed. And so even if it started from the kind of hand-eye coordination,
Yeah.
whether you're changing how you're looking or even your eyes closed, there's a lot that you can do that can make it, just one little change, how you're looking can make it feel very different.
So actually, I'm going to ask you something. So that's an exercise I do a lot for eyes closed. So almost all my clients have to do something eyes closed. They know that when they meet me. So, but when they tighten everything up, so all their joints are tightening, so they're over relying on their somatosensory system when they are trying to close their eyes, right? So they might not integrate their vestibular system well. So I always use that analogy when if you were like water skiing and everything tightened up, you're not actually going to have good balance. You're going to fall. We want somebody adaptable, flexible. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes balance isn't somebody that has no sway at all. We want that flexible person. So I have them pass a ball hand to hand, and it kind of just relaxes their upper body, and they
Mm-hmm.
actually are so surprised how much better their balance is. What other
Mm-hmm.
exercises, I'm going to put you on the spot now, would you do? So I just have them, I don't want them, so I use the ball two different ways. So one, eyes closed, I want them to just be able to catch it, right? Because I
Yep.
want them to be relaxed. Versus if I'm trying to decrease the visual system with their eyes open, I want their eyes moving while they're catching the ball and
Yeah.
trying. But so eyes closed, what would be your exercise that you would do with the
Well,
ball?
so there's a couple. One is you can think about when you pass the ball from hand to hand, you're not worrying about throwing and catching. So throwing and catching is going to be harder with your eyes closed than just passing from hand to hand. But when you pass from hand to hand, you don't just have to pass back and forth. You can create different patterns. So for example, one of the exercises I teach, which is more of a figure eight infinity sign,
Yeah.
it's called in, out, pass. So you're swinging in, out, pass, in, out, pass. So each time there's 3 beats to that sequence.
Yeah.
And what it is it's not just moving the ball in a shape, but you're creating that sequence where you have, it's not hard, it's not super complicated,
Yeah.
but you have to have a little bit more of the coordination, the timing, getting ready of when you're going to make the pass and when you're going to swing the ball, and just remembering that sequence. It becomes a little bit of a flow state. And so it's not just closing your eyes and doing the movement, but getting into that pattern that repeats. It can be a very moving meditation type feel. So you can create different positions in how you pass the ball. Are you passing it around your back, around your head? And that comes from my background in ball handling, right?
Yes.
So, with basketball. So, so you can think about, and that's what a lot of what my approach is with HandEyeBody Academy. It's not just here's the exercise, but what it is getting you thinking, okay, yeah, I can pass the ball like this. Oh, let me come up with other ways I can pass the ball. Or your students and clients, give them the permission to come up with their own creative ways to pass the ball back and forth. And so you can say, here's your constraint, your eyes are closed and you're passing the ball.
Yeah.
If you need to do it sitting down or if you're doing it standing, whatever level you're at,
Yeah.
find ways to get creative with it. And so you can come up with different ways to pass the ball. One of the early exercises I developed that I really like for proprioception, just awareness of where your body is hold the ball. Well, here's the exercise. I'll describe it. If you're listening, you probably can understand, but definitely if you look on the video, close your eyes and then hold the ball around eye level and move it around to just a random position in front of your face and then stop somewhere. Once you stop, try to align your other hand underneath the ball. Wherever you think the ball is lined up, line your other hand underneath. Your eyes are still closed. When you're ready, take a breath and then drop the ball and catch it and then open your eyes.
No, I love it.
So,
No.
so sometimes it'll bounce out of your hand and you don't have it perfectly lined up, but what it is, it's almost like a trust fall with yourself, because when you do it for the first time, it surprises you, like, how did I line up without even looking? And so
Yeah.
not only is that a good, you can do it as an exercise around proprioception and coordination, but you also can think of it as almost a piece of an evaluation. So most people are able to make that catch. If you're completely not lined up and not even close to making the catch, this isn't a fully standardized evaluation method, but what it can be is a little test you can do, and if whatever you notice from that may lead you in directions of other standardized evaluations to follow. So you can not only use the exercises as the exercises to build and improve, but you may notice something with your clients and how they're doing the exercises that gives you thoughts on, hey, maybe I should look in this direction for things I might test them on or help them with. So the drop and catch exercise is a really nice one for you to be able to see how they do. And also when you're doing it and you get it, it's a way to say, hey, you were able to throw and catch a ball without your eyes open. So if you think you can't do any of these moves or you're not coordinated at all, you just proved yourself wrong. So it's a way to also build that confidence, and that confidence and growth mindset is also a big part of the approach of why to do these exercises, not just the brain-body connection.
Yeah, I love it because I'm already going to start using and try that out this week. So, because I already, think about, and we've talked about this before, of what you already do and then add on to that, right? So,
Yep.
part of my test is I look to see the different sensory systems to see how much somebody's over relying or relying on a certain system. So,
Mhm.
one, I do actually the figure eight already, but I do that following my finger and watch, does their body follow their eyes? Are they swaying with that, or can they move their eyes and their bodies still stay upright and still? But then to add that eyes closed to see what happens and then add the ball, I think is just a fun way to, because balance, not everybody wants to be tested, or it's hard. When it is hard, they get frustrated very easily.
Mhm.
How do you make it more fun? And then you could probably change how close they are, right, to versus to bring their arms further apart to kind of create that.
And you can do that drop and catch, reaching high to
Yep.
down low. And again, that's where you can build different variations or try to have your hands more close together. So you can modify the basic concept to what you know about your goals with your specific clients. And what you just described about looking at where they're swaying when you do it, that's what I love is that I'm not trying to be an expert in everything vestibular, in everything ice hockey, in everything football, whatever it is, right? These are fundamental ideas that you can go in different directions. And so that's why I may not know exactly how to say, you have to do this exercise and watch this way and this amount. You take that knowledge of what you're already doing, and these exercises weave into all those practices already.
Yeah, but we need that creativity, right? Because our
Mhm.
clients, they want that fun part, right? We're not going to do
Oh,
things over and over again if it's boring. None of us are. Um,
it's both the fun and keeping it novel, right? And that's part of from the whether it's occupational therapy or specifically with Parkinson's, it or just anything, right? You
yeah.
want to keep it novel, and some of the research that has been done on juggling, right, where they show the juggling and increase in the gray matter and white matter in the brain. A lot of what the article describes is it's the process of learning to juggle. It's not the juggling itself; it's the process of learning. And so, if you can keep learning different ways to do it, or you get comfortable with one and change it up, that novelty is important, both for the brain and for keeping it fun, engaging, at building resilience, all of those things. And so I definitely, whether it's any specific goal, I recommend find ways to keep changing it so it's a little different and challenging, especially if someone's used to an exercise. So many exercise routines, it's like, okay, you do the same thing every day, and that can be good for certain aspects of what you're working on, but mix in other fun challenges that keep the overall practice different and growing each time.
Yeah, and I think the research is expanding on just looking at brain health, not just looking at, aerobic or cardiovascular. And that's a conversation I've been having with more preventive medicine doctors I work with, more just patients and clients that I work with is if you're already doing lunges, how do we add, lunges with more of a cognitive task that you're
Mhm.
getting now everything, you get more for that exercise. So I think
Mhm.
including that, people don't even know that they can do that. So how do you
Yeah.
start adding that creative part to it of just building on what people already are doing, but having that?
And you can think about it in almost like formulas, right? So you can say, okay, I'm doing a body movement or a lunge, a leg movement, or leg and body together.
Yep.
So what might I do differently with my hands? What can I do with my eyes? Right? So what can I do with my cognitive brain exercise? So you can take the different pieces. So maybe you're doing something with your legs. You say, okay, what can we do with our hands that changes things up? So an example, if you're doing a wall sit or you're kind of in a squat position, well, if you're trying to hold that like on the wall for 30 seconds to a minute,
Yeah.
instead of just sitting there thinking, this is hard, my legs are hurting, if
Yeah.
you throw and catch a ball while you're doing that, not only does it add your eyes and the tracking and your hands and all that, to me, and there definitely can be more research done on it, but just it can distract you from the pain of exercise. With the juggling,
Yeah.
uh, so I'm not a runner, but without training, maybe I can do a 5K uh, and not super fast, but I can handle this. And and but it's not easy. And so for me, running while juggling, which is called joggling, running while juggling is easier for me than just running. Now, for me, I'm comfortable with the juggling and I'm used to that. So it's not distracting me. It's actually adding to that flow, and it becomes something that I'm not focused on the pain of the running. I'm just focused on the juggling and can I keep the pattern going? And so it becomes another aspect of of the dynamics. And I'm sure there's more underlying in how that works, but I see that in practice, and definitely I think more work and research can be done to really understand why. But yeah, you can. There's so many different reasons and benefits that you can try to stack in different combinations to existing exercises.
So